Welcome to FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan. Araspina isn't here tonight because he is picking up his parents who have come to town for Thanksgiving. So we hope they have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And we're going to start tonight's show by recapping last weekend's HBO card. The main event was Peter Manfredo Jr. versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the Battle of the Juniors. And that fight ended up in a TKO for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I don't have much to say about this fight. It definitely seemed like Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is better than Peter Manfredo Jr. I guess he is improving with Freddie Roach, though I don't think he'll ever be on the level of Sergio Martinez, the real welterweight champion of the world. Back to the fight. After a first round that might have been scored even, or maybe you had it shaded towards Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., it ended up being kind of a lopsided fight. Although in the fourth round, Peter Manfredo seemed to get to Chavez Jr.'s body and had some success. In the fifth round, Peter Manfredo tried to capitalize on that success, and he got caught and wallowed by Chavez. And after that, Chavez tried to jump on him and tried to flurry. I thought Chavez was missing a lot of those punches, but there's definitely no disputing the fact that Manfredo was hurt. So Lawrence Cole decided to stop the fight in the fifth round. Maybe it was a bit controversial, but I didn't hear Manfredo complaining that much about the stoppage. It seemed like Manfredo was okay. I don't know whether he could have gone on or not, but he did announce before the fight that he was going to retire if he lost the fight. So he also had one foot out the door probably. And he kept his promise, and he did announce that he is retiring. So happy trails to Peter Manfredo Jr. We hope that he has a good retirement, and we'll see what Chavez Jr. does next. He seems to tell people, or he seems to say, that he wants Sergio Martinez, the middleweight champion of the world, but I'm not sure if his handlers or if Freddie Roach really want Sergio Martinez. We'll see what happens with that. Also in action this past Saturday, Fernando Montiel, who lost in a minor upset. He lost a unanimous decision to a young fighter named Victor Terrazas. He's not a young fighter. Terrazas is actually 28 years old. He's a good, capable fighter. This was somewhat of an upset, but Terrazas is a guy who can fight. Montiel lost a 12-round decision. He had his moments in the fight. Maybe he didn't have enough of them, so he lost. I don't think this is a major setback for Montiel, who you might remember earlier this year got flattened by Nonito Donaire. It's not a bad loss, but it is a loss. He's 32 years old. He's still got some in the tank, and he's got that powerful right hand. So we'll see what he does next, and congratulations to Victor Terrazas. Also in action this past Saturday was Joshua Clottey. Now, the last time we saw him, he was fighting, or actually it was more like he wasn't fighting Manny Pacquiao at welterweight. This past weekend, Clottey fought at 156 pounds, so a couple of pounds above the junior middleweight, the junior middleweight weight, and he took out a guy named Calvin Green in 2 rounds. So after the fight, Clottey, of course, announces that he wants to fight the winner of Antonio Margarito versus Miguel Cotto 2, and that's the next fight we're going to talk about. Now, there was a lot of drama about whether this fight was even going to happen, or whether it was going to happen in New York, or whether it was going to happen in Texas, or Mississippi, or Denver seemed like a real possibility. And the reason why there was so much drama was because people weren't sure whether Antonio Margarito was going to get licensed to fight in New York. Now, for those of you who are kind of sketchy about this, in order to be able to fight in any state, you have to pass a test administered by the state athletic commission, and it's usually just a formality to make sure that you're healthy enough to fight. The reason why it was an issue with Antonio Margarito was because last year he got his face bashed in by Manny Pacquiao. Now, in the process of getting his face bashed in, he had his right orbital bone broken, and there were some retina issues with his right eye. He had the surgery, I believe, in September of this year, and it's now November, about to be December. So there was a lot of worry about whether the eye was going to hold up if he fought again, or whether he should even be in the ring. And when the fight was announced in September, it seemed like the commission was on board, and they ended up denying Margarito his license. The New York commission ended up denying Margarito his license on October 31st. Now, that doesn't give a lot of time between the fight that's supposed to happen on December 3rd. So Top Rank appealed the decision, and it looked like, for all intents and purposes, that the fight was dead in the water, and that the fight was going to get moved to somewhere where they had a commission that isn't as stringent as New York's. But I guess behind the scenes, what happened was there were some politicians and some business people who work at Madison Square Garden, or who have an interest in this fight staying in New York, because for this season, the basketball has been on strike and there hasn't been as much revenue to Madison Square Garden as in the past. So there was some uproar about leaving the fight at Madison Square Garden. The fight was almost sold out. I think there were a couple of thousand tickets that are left over. So the commission convened again, and they told Top Rank, the company that promotes Antonio Margarito, that they would only license Margarito, or they would only consider licensing Margarito if Margarito met with a New York doctor that they chose. Now, I'm not sure why this wasn't done before they denied the license on October 31st, but it was done. And Margarito met with the doctor at a midway point between the mountains of Mexico, where he's training for this fight, and New York City. Over the weekend, he met with the doctor and then went back to training, I guess. And the doctor came back to New York and spoke with the commission. And on Tuesday, the commission, based on the doctor's recommendation, decided to license Margarito. So after all of that, after all this back and forth about where the fight is going to happen, after Miguel Cotto on a conference call with the press says, "I am not going to fight Antonio Margarito unless it's in New York." After all this, the fight stays in New York. It's going to be December 3rd at Madison Square Garden. This is a fight that you want to be at. And I'm not just talking about this particular fight, Antonio Margarito versus Miguel Cotto 2, the rematch. That's going to be a good fight. Well, it might be a good fight, depending on really how Margarito's eye is. It could just end up being quick work by Cotto, but we'll see. And if you've seen the 24/7 episode that they did, it's going to be a two-parter. This past Saturday, they aired the first part on HBO. This is something that you really want to see. I think that it's the best episode of 24/7 ever, and it's one of the best episodes because you have good versus evil. You basically have the good guy, Miguel Cotto, the family guy, the guy who was fighting in honor of his father who passed away, and you have Antonio Margarito, the villain, and he is just he is the villain in this 24/7, and he's a better villain than Floyd Mayweather Jr. ever hopes to be, because here's a guy who got caught cheating, who still denies to this day that he was cheating in the first Cotto fight where he beat Cotto, and he looks the part. Here he is with his Justin Bieber like haircut and his dark sunglasses and his Guido tracksuit, and he is just the villain in this thing. And so it's a really great episode of 24/7 that you want to check out when you get the chance. And putting aside that fight and all the drama that's going to be involved in that fight, you have a really, really good undercard, which is generally not the case in recent pay-per-views. On the undercard, actually the co-feature, you have Brandon Rios versus John Murray, which should be a decent fight. Rios, of course, is a guy at junior welterweight who actually looks like he's gonna make some noise in that division. And at lightweight, he's a good fighter. And this is a good young fighter. He's an all-action fighter. This guy, he doesn't maybe invest as much in defense as a guy like Juan Manuel Marquez does, but he is all action, and he puts it out there. And he's a fighter that you want to catch and that you want to see before his chin starts to fail him. And then also on the undercard, we have Paul Wallach versus Delvin Rodriguez, the rematch. Their first fight that happened at Roseland was a fight is a fight of the year candidate for this year. So here they are rematching. So we expect to see fireworks with that fight. And then we have a young Mike Jones versus Sebastian Luan, and this is a fight where Mike Jones, the up and coming welterweight, gets to showcase his skill against a guy who's had some experience in the ring. So this is a really, really good undercard. So just for those three fights, you'd love to be at Madison Square Garden. And then you have the cherry on the top, Antonio Margarito versus Miguel Cotto, the rematch, December 3rd, Madison Square Garden. It's going to be on pay-per-view if you can't make it to Madison Square Garden. But if you're in New York City, you want to be at Madison Square Garden that night. because there are so many Puerto Rican fans that are going to be cheering for Cotto. There are going to be Mexican fans cheering for Margarito. There's going to be Polish fans for Walnick. There are going to be Dominican fans too for Rodriguez. And it's just going to be an insane crowd. I think it's going to be a soccer-like atmosphere. There's nothing like Madison Square Garden on a night like that. So you definitely want to be there on December 3rd. And with that, that's it for this show. Thank you for watching. I hope that everybody out there has a healthy and safe Thanksgiving. Take care, and we'll see you soon.